Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing deflecting hammer and some of the more important principles, rules, theories, concepts, and strategies of this technique. So let's talk about the general strategy of this technique. The idea here is this person is throwing a kick at us, and then what we're going to be doing is we're going to get them in an awkward position, lengthen the amount of time in which they can reestablish their base, and take advantage of it and hit them. Very simple, very easy. The reason why we're bringing this up first is because everything we're doing to talk about in this technique is to employ that strategy. So let's start out with the positioning first. That's a good place to start. We're both standing here, and I could be in one of three spots. I could be in the position of a natural stance, a semi-ready, or a ready position. Okay, so we could be fully not ready, partially ready, or fully ready. So why is that important? Because then that brings in the first concept that we have to do, a rule. The rule says, rule number one, we must establish a base. So if we're not in this fully ready position this way, or we're in a partial or non-ready position, we have to establish that base. So we need to step back, okay? So we're employing rule number one. Now, this brings us into the attack of what they're doing towards us. They're doing a kick towards us in this case. So with any attack, there's what's called the line of attack. And there's a rule with kicks that deals with the line of attack. So in this case, if I were to stay on the line of attack, I need to block off the line of attack. The opposite is also true. If I was to step off the line of attack, I would block on the line of attack. Okay, so now we have that taken care of. Let's talk about how we're going to be blocking off that line of attack. There are two ways primarily in which you can do this. One is using a standard block, a blocking block. In this case, it would be parallel to both me and my opponent and perpendicular to both the foot and the camera. So let's talk through that and then how it's different from the second one, which is what's called a parrying block. Okay? So let's start out with that standard block and why this is the least of the two. So if I do this block really hard and I start to get that block and I'm all ready to go, what happened? There's a problem here. There's a horizontal circle that I'm starting, and there's a general rule with that that says do not start orbits that reorbit back to hit you. In this case, they were able to hit me with that left hand by using that horizontal. So that's so that is reinforced a little bit more. Let's show you a vertical version of that. If this person was coming at me and I were to hit that hand down, same thing happens, now only on a vertical case rather than a horizontal case. So the rule is never start an orbit that will reorbit back to hit you. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing that we need to worry about is we do this block, we realize that we don't want to get that reorbit back to us, so we only block them off a little bit. Now I want to hit him with this elbow. Okay, sounds great. There's a general problem with that. In this case, line of sight and false travel. So what are those? So my elbow down here is I'm trying to hit him in the face, but this is in the way, so I don't have line of sight, so I have to come up over it in order to hit them, because I want to hit him with that elbow really hard. And that brings in the idea of false travel. What is that? If you'll notice, I'm trying to hit them on the horizontal here, okay, using depth. But the problem is, most of my path of travel is vertical here, and only the last part of it is on that horizontal. So you're left with the impression that you're able to hit this person really hard because they have a lot of path of travel, but most of that path of travel is not used in order to help hit this person. Okay, so how do we solve for that problem? Again, through this secondary way of doing the blocking. So let's start out with that and then go through some of the advantages of this second way, which is called parrying blocking. So I'm going to step back and unblock this way. So that taking what we just left off, notice where my elbow is. My elbow is here. It has line of sight to what I'm going to hit, and most of my travel is now used in order to deliver that horizontal or depth strike. And I have proper path of travel. I don't have a little path of travel. Remember, we're dealing with a yellow belt technique, and generally beginners need a longer path of travel in order to hit somebody properly. So in this case, that hand is brought back here to do the hit. Another way to think about this is that we are starting a circle, and then we're cutting that circle in half. So that's the general way that one wants to think about this. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about some of the other advantages of this second way of blocking. So let's talk about the strategy again. The idea was to block them off, get them in a weird position or a bad position, and hit them before they can get back into a good position. So let's walk through that. The person throws that kick. Notice what just happened here. I got them in an awkward position, hand in place, so that I can hit them very easily. So let's show you what would happen if I didn't do that. If they were to throw the kick and I was just going to stand here, notice the positioning of the opponent. Why are they doing what they're doing? They want availability of all these weapons to them, right? They want our center lines to be matched up so that we're now in a fighting position. But what we're going to do is we're going to get them into that awkward position. So let's walk through that very quickly. Notice what just happened. They originally set their foot over here, but now their foot is over here, okay? So that lengthens the amount of time before they can establish that base. And now the positioning. Notice their hands and feet. Before they had availability of all four, but now the only line of sight they have is on this left leg. And we can easily control that through some checking. So remember the strategy, and the idea was before they establish that base, we want to hit them, and that's what we're going to do at this point. But before we discuss that, let's talk about what's happening with our feet. Okay, just as we did previously, let's start out with what we're going to do with our feet. We go to do this frictional pull, and we don't pull them far enough, and we want to hit them with this elbow. The problem is I can't get them with the elbow. So there's an idea that says foot maneuvers are added as needed. So in this case, the ideal phase of deflecting hammer uses that foot maneuver to show you that if you don't pull them close enough to you, you're going to have to use that foot maneuver. But most times, you're going to be able to get into that distance. Now, let's bring in the final idea of this block. The idea is frictional pull. So I could reach out and grab this person and pull them. It uses friction, but it also uses this compression in order to get that friction to make it possible. But we don't do this in this kick. What we're going to be doing is we're just going to be using that riding motion. In other words, it's going in the same general direction as a kick, just diverting it, but then we're going to be using that motion in order to pull them to us more to, again, lengthen that time and to get them in weird positioning and get our elbow in line. So let's see that. So we'll go this way. So notice what just happened. See the effect? That's what you want. Everything is ready to go. And that brings us into the final couple concepts we have here. First is the positioning of this opponent. Notice their hands are pretty much down, so all I need to do is check this and hit them high. There could be another situation where these hands are up a little bit further. And in order to do that, I now have a choice. I can either move this hand out of the way and then hit them, or I could allow them to keep that hand up and go low. Okay? There's another idea that can run into play here, is how tall this opponent is in relation to me, not only just the positioning. If I were to try and go high on a taller person, I would have to hit up on this angle. Okay? So this brings in a new concept of the power principle that's being employed here. We are using depth, right? If you'll notice, we're hitting this person on depth. That is the backup mass power principle. In other words, another way to think about that is alignments make backup mass possible. So how does that work here? If this person's really tall and I'm trying to hit up here, I don't have proper alignment. Or if I hit here, you'll notice I have proper alignments. Or here, I have proper alignments. So we need to take that into consideration, is height between me and my opponent, and positioning of me, my opponent, and getting that proper alignment for backup mass. In other words, we want to counter this person as quick as possible, but we want to do it in a way that's devastating. Okay? So now that we've run through that entire thing, let's do a quick demonstration of this technique so that you can see it being employed. Okay, up. Hope this video helps you understand the American Kenpo system just a little bit better. Thank you very much.